Today we are talking about the top touring keyboard rigs of 2025. Stick around. Hi, this is Ted Barsley with Alamo Piano Galleries.
I'm Roland RD from the Alamo Music Sound Lab.
And today we are talking about touring rigs and the top gear that maybe you would want to take, Roland would want to take, I might want to take to travel with and play and perform. You can find some of these keyboards we'll be talking about today available at alamopianogalleries.com. And they should have pricing and availability information. And with that, we're going to get into talking about the keyboard dream machine, the one that can do mostly everything you need it to do.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them on the market, a number of different manufacturers. We're going to try to hit on a couple of them today, demonstrate a couple of them. Starting, I guess, we'd throw the hat in the ring with the MP11SE from Kawai. And this has piano, electric pianos, and then general other, strings, brass, horns, drums, percussion, all the other.
They call it a subsection, but it's really just strings and extra stuff.
What's interesting, though, is on some of our other keyboard videos, we talked about how many keyboards you needed to get through a gig and cover certain sounds. On the electric pianos, it's really cool. They kind of have a setup, at least Kawai setup, where it's like a Whirly, a Rhodes, a clavinet, and there's one other thing. Sometimes they put a CP, one of the electric sounds, in it.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of people aren't aware that Kawai actually made an electric grand and an electric upright piano in the 70s. I played a couple of those. The grands were different than the Yamaha electric grands. They were just as portable, just as stable in their tuning as the Yamahas were. But Kawai had an upright model, which I like because the keyboard folded and you could just push it and roll it.
Nice.
And it came with its own wheels, whereas the Kawai one, I think you had to put the legs in.
Yeah.
And they went straight up and down, whereas
like
Yamaha
a CP70.
had this. Those were real pianos. And they played like real pianos, which is why everyone didn't mind all the hassle and work to go through them. And now, like this Kawai, for example, has this kind of action in it, which you can see is like a real wooden key, about the length of what an upright action would be, or at least any kind of small piano. And then they weight the hammers based on low to high, so whether they're heavy or lighter, gauged accordingly, just like they would on a grand piano. This action and where it actually triggers the sound is very, very similar on most of the Roland, the Yamaha, the design. They have their own little stuff they do to it, but
very sensitive and very, very playable.
And it also has that great repeat on it, like on a true grand or upright piano.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that makes it neat, is that the triggering is so much better than what it used to be in the 80s keyboards.
Oh, absolutely.
And the sampled sounds are just remarkable because of the
I do have to say, after playing this particular keyboard a few times, I really do enjoy the action. It's really unlike any other. I mean, Yamaha has their own action. Roland has their own action. Kawai's got their own thing going on. I really dig the Kawai. It's a little bit heavier, but I enjoy it.
Part of that being heavier, I think, relates back to Kawai trying to always emulate a true grand piano,
right,
even in their uprights. And when I was a teenager, I deliberately went after a Kawai piano for my home piano because their actions were heavier. And I thought, if you can play really well on a Kawai, you get on anything else and it's just
like
fly.
Butter.
Yeah, it's like fly.
I agree.
And so that was the attraction for me. And what I like about each of the individual manufacturers, particularly Yamaha and Kawai, is they put their own manufactured pianos sampled into their sound bank.
Correct.
So
yes,
if you want that Yamaha C7 sound, you can get that Yamaha C7 or CF3S or the CFX sound, just like you can get the Shigeru Kawai sound on some of the Kawais. I don't know if this one has the SK sample in it. I believe it does.
I think it does, yes.
It has the SKEX.
Yeah.
And then they also go into, now this is what is really a unique thing, is both Yamaha and Kawai and Roland does the same thing, is they make sure that not only do you get great and variable grand pianos, they do it for uprights.
Yes.
And uprights have a different tonal texture, and people play uprights different than they do grand pianos. And a lot of times, a little bit, just a touch out of tune upright sounds more real than a perfect grand piano.
Oh,
in
I
an
agree.
ensemble environment.
Absolutely.
And in recording. So a lot of times, if you're playing with other musicians, you may not want that great, perfectly round, excellent grand piano sound. You might want something that's thin, cheesy, and wiry so it stands out like an audible piano in the overall mix.
Oh, sure.
And some of that, we talked about those samples from the Chateau piano sound. Not
Elton
necessarily
John.
on video.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've really gone back and listened to a lot of those recordings. Like I said, there's a lot of piano doubling going on the album to fatten up the sound of just the.
Well, it might be the same
piano
note, but the same note struck twice, different times, is different harmonics. So that'll open up that soundstage really big, really fast.
Yeah, and it's the idea that, you know, we hear singers doubling their vocals all the time, even in soft passages. They sing on a whisper and sing it 2 or 3 times and mix it in. It sounds really great. But then again, there's things like, I'm not knocking the song, but for example, Alone Again Naturally, I think that Gilbert O'Sullivan must have that 3, if not at time 4 voices going on that lead.
Yeah.
And that is just, you know, there's an effect on vocal pedals and things they call thickening.
Right.
Now, how do you explain thickening?
Well, it's a couple of, I guess, cents off. A few cents off on each one.
The idea is that you overdub yourself 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
Like, you know, Annette Funicello did when she first started releasing singles in the 60s. She was real nervous to sing and said, well, look, just sing real lightly like you're in your room practicing.
Right.
And do that 2 or 3 times almost the same way.
And it'll sound fine.
And you'll sound really big and huge. And that was really the first time I heard layering described in the studio and the effect it has.
Right.
And, you know, Karen Carpenter loved her voice, used the same thing, a lot of those singers. And believe it or not, any other singer, the only one I know of that I've never really heard him double track his voice that is audibly that I'm aware of was Sinatra. A lot of the others, there's always some double tracking going on, except maybe opera guys and stuff like that.
Right.
But if it's anywhere near pop music, you can almost guarantee that vocal line's going to be double tracked.
I do production work on the side as well, and sometimes I'll get songs that were, recorded elsewhere, and there's 30 stacks of vocals. 30 stacks.
That's a lot of.
I know. You got to bring some down to a very, very low level and kind of pan them out just a little bit differently. But yeah, so the double tracking thing has really exploded, and it's no longer 2 or 3 or 4 tracks. It's like 30 tracks now.
Yeah, and then there's different parts, but a lot of that was, remember where the sound comes from. Now it's almost a given. You have a keyboard, you're going out, you're running 2 channels. You are in stereo left and right. Otherwise, your piano doesn't sound deep and real.
Right.
So just running in stereo gives you an excellent sound.
Yeah.
And both not only on the acoustic piano sound, but also on any kind of electric piano sound. Certainly the Rhodes with vibrato, any chorusing that's being used, stereo chorusing or stereo phasing and flanging, all that comes out in your live sound. It comes out in the headphones when you listen to it. That's why they sound deeper, richer, and thicker. Now, Roland, the other model you're talking about is the RD-2000EX.
Right, that's the newest version of the RD-2000, and it's also a very valid and very cool digital piano for stage use, right? So it's got that Roland 88-key hammer action, which is fantastic. It's got that EX sound engine, which incorporates a lot of new piano samples into it that are not just, Roland's typical piano samples. They've really kind of expanded the palette a little bit to be more, I guess, global, if you will. There's some really bright, pingy pianos. There's some really deep, rich pianos. But what the difference is for me on the RD-2000 compared to this Kawai is the action is a lot smoother and lighter on the Roland than it is on the Kawai. Also, this is about double the size of an RD-2000, so it's going to be a little bit of a backbreaker if you're taking it on the road, where the RD-2000 might be a little bit easier to transport. But again, I wouldn't say one's any better than the other. They're both pretty valid.
Well, I was going to, when this part of the conversation came up, I was already leaning toward the RD-2000EX, mostly because you can pick it up and go to a gig with it. This
Well,
guy
kind
here,
of. It's still heavy.
It's still heavy, but at the same time, you're going to need a hand truck or another person to help you load in some of these. And again, that's what makes these keyboards so desirable for touring and traveling and playing on, is that they're rock solid foundations and they feel like playing. You want it to feel like you're playing a piano, whether it's an upright or a grand. You want to feel like it's not going to move away or bounce around or
Substantial.
yeah. And the idea behind that weight, I don't know. It seems like everything that's heavy and sturdier actually plays and sounds better. I don't want to say that it's got to have some girth to it but in order for a player to feel comfortable leaning into the thing.
Oh yeah.
Because you can't play a Fender Rhodes unless you're leaning into it.
Exactly.
And not that you really need to lean into these, because it's not that same machine. Playing a Rhodes sound on any digital piano today is entirely different than playing a real Rhodes from the 70s or 80s.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you had to have a little bit of shoulder strength on some of those notes
to get them to really resonate out. And
well,
ping, you know?
yeah, you wanted that thing to pop. And so we have some comparative sounds, I think. And so we're going to hit, and I also wanted to mention that, because you mentioned that the RD-2000 it has a different kind of action. I'm not saying it's less real or more real. It's kind of like real on a different type of piano. It seems more like a European or an Austrian type
Absolutely.
feeling.
I agree with that.
To me, so when you play those, like, oh, this is like playing a nice light grand piano. And I wanted to mention that before we go to the sample. So let's go in and have a listen.
So I really, really did enjoy playing that RD-2000EX, not just because of that piano sample, which I thought was really lovely, but I mean, the synthesizer parts in there are fantastic. I think the EX engine has a lot more than, say, the MP engine has as far as extra sounds like choirs and strings and organs and synthesizers and bass leads and lead synthesizers in general. That RD-2000 really kind of goes overboard with that kind of stuff in a very cool way. So yeah, I found for myself that I enjoyed the RD-2000EX just a little bit more than the Kawai.
On the synth side, the RD-2000 to me was it's like endless fun because there's all these different types of layered keyboards and all the different sounds, and you can certainly do a lot more with the sounds in it than you can with the MP11. What I do like about the MP11, and I said it before, is the one thing I don't like about it is that it's really heavy, it's really sturdy, and it feels so great to jam and pound on this thing. But again, you can do more with the RD-2000 if you're going to have more synth. If you're playing a lot of 80s music, this may not be the thing to take to the gig. You got great pianos and acoustic and electric, but if you're going to need some of those flashier synth solo sounds and all that, you're going to probably have a far easier, more fun time on an RD-2000.
With the Roland. Yeah.
Again, these are the two that we're talking about that.
Do you have any suggestions for something else?
The only other thing I can think of is how you could get the price maybe closer to half. Certainly the weight down to half. I love the Yamaha CK88. I went on and on about that.
Nice.
And there's a few other keyboards that are great, but the CK88 for me is a wonderful keyboard because it packs so much power into a smaller light case, and it's almost like they said, let's just get this for dudes that want to go out and jam with all kind of different bands.
Easily, yeah. And the sounds are totally valid. The weight is completely cool, and the price point is a no-brainer. There's a number of keyboards along the line that are not the company's top of the line production, but they just work great in there. We pulled these out mostly because these are the ones that I like to play. They're more like, again, it's with a working action in it. This is important to a lot of players because they want to feel like they're sitting at a nice grand piano or a nice replacement or substitute for it. And it's not like the CK88 is going to give you that feeling. It's a lot thinner, and it plays and sounds great, but do you feel the same pounding on it? That comes down to what kind of jam sessions you're going to have. Right.
Any final wrap-up comments?
No, I mean, it was a joy to play all the keyboards, really. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I'm set.
Okay.
For me, they're the Roland rocks. Roland says Roland rocks.
Roland says Roland rocks. I agree with him. I also, I do love the sturdiness and the action of the Kawai. But I mean, I tell you what, the Yamaha is a competitor you have to always kind of look at and start off with. I'm real big on the Roland. Roland, I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I always thought it's nice to bring something you can pound on and feel good about, but then I've known so many guys that get in and out with easy keyboards. They walk in with that CK88, set it up, plug it in, have a great gig, play all kinds of music tomorrow night.
I got to do more of those gigs.
Those are the ones, all you got to do is find them, right?
I know.
That's always the problem. This is Ted Barsley with Alamo Piano Galleries.
I'm Roland Perez from the Alamo Music Sound Lab.
Thank you for your time, and we'll look for you the next time.